This is Ground Affected. My name is Brent, and in today's video, I'm gonna help you spend more of your money. Except this time, I think we're gonna save some money. In a previous video, I'd explained how I personally fill gaps and holes on my prints and bases and things like that. In that video, I explained that milliput was the main thing that I used to use. This thing. Now, while this does have its uses, it's just not feasible when you start working on statues of this size. And of course, once again, thanks to comments on my videos, I found something much cheaper. Now, is this product going to replace milliput? I don't think it replaces it for everything. However, in this particular situation, filling gaps on bases, for example, where not too much sculpting is needed, I found the perfect product. And yes, as we go along, we're going to find out I've used products that maybe were too expensive. However, I will correct that in the future. If I find something that works just as good but costs a fraction of the price, I'm going to bring that forward so that you guys can make the decision for yourself what is best for you to use in your own hobby. At the end of the day, not all of us are balling on a massive budget and able to just buy the latest and greatest hobbying parts for use in making our statues and models. So,
what is this magical product you speak of, Mr. Ground Affected?
well, that is filler, used for filling wood and I guess gaps in houses. I'm not really sure, perhaps holes in walls, but mostly used for wood. This stuff dries rock hard and super easy to sand. Not only does this fulfill a need that I needed in my own hobby, but it works much quicker than the product I had previously used, which cost me 20 times as much. This cost me nearly £5 just for this box. I went to the local hardware store and I had a look at what they had available for filling gaps, essentially, but in the real world. And I ended up finding this tub of filler. This cost me £3.25 for probably 10 times the amount of milliput that came in this box. Does this replace the milliput? It definitely does not. What it does do is fill a gap within my hobby. Milliput is essentially a two-part epoxy. You mix a hardener and the epoxy or the resin, or I'm not really sure what the technical term for that is, but you mix the two parts together and the chemical reaction of those two parts is what makes it go hard. We can use this to our advantage in certain ways. For example, we can water that down and make it a thinner ratio, which will be easier to smooth into gaps and flow a little bit easier over the surface we're trying to fill. And so the fact that milliput comes out a little bit harder and easier to sculpt is why this will not replace milliput. This is not possible to be sculpted. It's way too gooey. It's almost like if you would imagine a plaster of Paris mix or something similar. In fact, it's very powdery once it dries. The other drawback to this stuff is it freaking stinks. So if you're going to use it, I'd probably suggest using it in a well-ventilated area, or at the very least, open your bloody window and try not to sniff straight out of the pot. So when I used the milliput in the last video, I had to leave that for overnight to dry so that it was properly cured. But when I used this new filler that I'd found for a lot cheaper and a lot more of it in the pot, my parts were dry within 1 hour. Some of the bits dry within a couple of minutes, almost 20 minutes or so for most of it to be touch dry. And like it says on the back of this pot, it dries within an hour. Thicker bits will take a bit longer. I can't comment on the strength between this and say milliput. However, I have noticed milliput is not the most strongest thing in the world, and it does tend to break, especially if left in small pieces. This stuff, I've filled some pretty large gaps on this base, and essentially it worked exactly how I would want it to work. It goes down super easy. You can scrape it around, push it around. Water will thin it down as well, so if you need it a little bit thinner, you can do that too. It is quite thin out the tub, but the most important part is that this cost me a fraction of what milliput will cost. And so this resolves a couple of issues people might have had around milliput. One, you may not be able to find it in the area you live in. Two, it may be a little bit outside your budget, specifically if you need to fill a load of larger gaps. The last thing you want to do is use an entire box of this stuff when you could probably use a small teaspoon out of here. Here you can see where I've used it to fill the gaps on the back of this model. You can kind of see the size of the gaps as well. They're quite large gaps, But if we look at the part that I had zenithal highlighted just to be able to show you exactly how this stuff works, realistically there isn't really much difference between the new filler that I had found and milliput. At the end of the day, we just want a gap filled. It doesn't really matter what the product is called or what it was originally designed for, unless of course if its properties are completely different to what we're looking for. And so at first, when I was mentioned this in the comments, I was a little bit skeptical of using something like that. However, I've completely changed my mind, and I do really appreciate the fact that I have people commenting and leaving really important tips and tricks just like that within the comments of my videos. This past week has been slightly different for me. As you know, or may not know, I hurt myself a week or so ago, and the show must still go on, but this does mean I've had to restrict some of the movements that I've made, particularly around painting and printing. It was rather difficult to get prints off of the build plate. I don't know why, but that hurt more than anything else. But that doesn't change from the fact that it's been an extremely busy week over on the Patreon. And so I have a load of names which I need to call out in thanks for joining and subscribing, and mostly just for supporting the channel and believing in what I am busy doing with my channel. I can't thank you guys enough. This really helps the channel and helps boost productivity, as well as help keep the lights on, which you know are always blinding me. And so I need to say thanks to the newest patrons we got over the last couple of days: George FC, Sal R, Svi, Asim Paints, Backyard Props, Brent Cox, Samuel Incani, definitely butchered that one, Travis Billington, I don't even know how to say this one, Ricardo Perella, Greenwood, Mike Sullivan, and John Colon. As you know, if you join the Patreon, you get instant access to our private Discord. We chat every day on that Discord, and it's basically a direct link where I'm 100% going to get back to you on any messages you leave in any one of the channels. As well as, you are constantly supporting the channel, and this helps more than you can ever know. And well, as we know, there's only one thing left to do if you've made it this far into this video. And yes, YouTube has taken away the dislike count. But if you didn't like the video, you can just click dislike and f*** off. Can't believe I forgot to tell them to like and subscribe. It's okay, they're all good people. They will like and they will subscribe. One more thing I need to add quickly: if you are a painter and you would like your art featured on my Instagram, then the next time you post it, hashtag ground affected, and I will share any statues you paint with the hashtag ground affected on Instagram in my stories. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.